You're watching Narrative Live on a very special paid subscriber event. Hello to Anne Mitchell. Nice to see you again, Anne, from the great Substack Notes from the Front. Anne is an attorney. She's an advocate. She's also been someone who's a law professor, but she's also deeply understanding of what's inside the Epstein archive. She is incredibly familiar with everything that's inside the Epstein archive. And Anne, it's great to see you again. How are you?
Great to see you again as well, Zev. I am fine. I'm just very happy to be here with you. And I just wanted to say that I'm the reason I'm hesitating is because I'm watching the live and it's just spinning. I'm not seeing us.
Oh, it does
So
say I can see us.
I was just
And
going to say, can you guys see us?
I can see you on your thing too, I think.
There
So
we
I think
go.
I think we're okay, but double check it. If anyone can't, we'll just take a few minutes here before we settle in to what is going to be a really interesting evening, because we're going to be talking about this dinner conversation we aired just a week ago. It feels like a lifetime ago. There's so many things that have happened since, but it was just over a week ago that we aired this this extraordinary conversation of Ehud Barak, Larry Summers, and Jeffrey Epstein having dinner at his home, the Epstein's townhome in the Upper East Side, and that conversation really opened everyone's eyes and I think ears to the idea that this is much more than just a human trafficking operation. That we're dealing with here is counterintelligence operation, intelligence operation, and also operation that involves pulling the financial strings and economies around the world. And that really struck me out of that conversation. It was so fascinating to have an opportunity to eavesdrop into what it was like to be at dinner at Jeffrey Epstein. And this was just one dinner of many that he had,
Absolutely.
which were just like this. And then you unearthed this video from the FBI Epstein files and were able to bring it to some prominence. And last week we heard some of it. We'll hear a little bit more tonight. But, the reaction has been quite remarkable.
It was actually the first time when I first listened to it. Uh, I was blown away because it was right there exactly how these people in power or behind the people in power are manipulating the economies of countries and in manipulating the governments of countries and influencing the defense of, again, to remind people, Ehud Barak, during this dinner, and that's the thing that we played last week, he was the sitting defense minister of Israel. And he was sitting with Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Summers talking about things that absolutely had to be classified. And so that in itself is astonishing. But then to really think a minute and realize, what does that mean about the relationships that Epstein and Summers and Barak had? And it just really brought home that Epstein was at very least considered a confidant and an asset of some sort for Barak. So yeah, it was astonishing. And many people have told me after watching that show just that they had not realized. They said, Zev, and you keep saying that the girls are like a side gig, that it's really about the financial stuff and the manipulations, and now we really understand it.
It is starting to crack through that message, and it's great that it is starting to crack through. And even for me, listening to that audio was such a confirmation of what I suspected was the case, that this was a intelligence operation first. This was a perhaps not only driven by nation-state interests, perhaps driven by business and organized crime interests as well, but nevertheless an intelligence operation designed to really interfere in American politics and designed to really interfere in the American economy and elsewhere in the world. But the particular target was definitely America, and it shines through in this audio. We're going to listen to three different clips that we didn't get to last week. Because there was so much in last week's show, which just sort of set the groundwork, we missed some of the more nuanced stuff that might have seemed quite boring on first listen. But listening to it again now, there's some really interesting things that you get out of it. And you really get into this relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak in particular. let's not forget, my reporting is that Jeffrey Epstein worked for Israeli military intelligence, and that Ehud Barak at this point was the defense secretary or defense minister of Israel, which would have put him at the top of the food chain of the Israeli military intelligence. He would have run IDF. He would have run their military intelligence. It's just the way things are. And so one of these people, though it's hard to tell whom at this point, is the boss of the other. And it's clear throughout this conversation that we unpack even further today that this is about the career that Ehud Barak will do after he leaves the defense ministry. This is the job that's coming next for him. And it's about the role that Jeffrey Epstein plays as coach and network advisor to Ehud Barak in figuring out what he's going to do next. And this role lands up being a kind of very influential role that ultimately, talks about influencing governments, manipulating governments, advising governments on a global scale.
And he ends up connecting with people, at least one person in particular that I'm thinking of here in the US. So I can't emphasize enough for people that you may be thinking, oh, well, it's Ehud Barak and he's over there overseas. What do I really care about that? Is that really something I need to think about? And you're going to hear exactly why. Yes, you really need to know the connection to people in the United States that this guy has.
And it's also important to remember that this is not disconnected from the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, because Ehud Barak was also one of the people accused by Virginia Giuffre, although she doesn't name him by name. It's believed that the person she's referring to in her book is Ehud Barak, who raped her and allegedly, and also did so quite viciously. Now she is no longer with us, as many of you know, but her account in the book is horrifying. And as much as Ehud Barak has denied this particular incident and denied any involvement with Virginia Giuffre, he was a regular guest at Jeffrey Epstein for a long period of time. This dinner happened in 2013, but he, for the next year after that, was there on a regular basis, almost monthly. So to expect there not to have been interactions is it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see that we're getting questions about what is Ehud Barak up to now, and that's part of what we're going to answer. And also, I agree. The message just flew by, so I'm not sure who said it, but I have come to believe that it's more likely than not that Epstein actually was taken out or took himself out, knowing that he would be taken out. Because as an asset, if you're compromised, that's what happens. And you know that. So I'm sorry that I don't see who said that, but I just wanted to tell you that I agree.
There's a lot of, considerable questions to be asked around the death of Jeffrey Epstein, but also the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, which happened under the Trump DOJ. People forget that this was an effort by Bill Barr, the Department of Justice under Donald Trump. It wasn't something Biden did. It wasn't something Obama did. This is something that Trump's administration did. Which meant that they must have been a little bit concerned about what he was doing at the time. And we know from the other emails we've seen that he was talking a lot about Trump, especially to people like Stephen Bannon, who had direct access to Trump.
Yes.
And at some point, Stephen Bannon actually tells Epstein in one of these emails, be careful. There are people who are upset about what you're saying. And Jeffrey Epstein sort of brushes it off. But we also know that in jail, he was talking to prosecutors. He started naming names.
And yeah.
Then that really lines up with your theory that he was taken out, that now he might be alive and taken out. That's another possibility, but he was certainly, in my mind, murdered because of what he knew. Or, maybe there's a way that he was encouraged to commit suicide. I know that sounds weird, but.
And well, also, let's not forget that during that time, Trump has always said steadfastly that after a certain year, he has not had he didn't have any connection with Epstein. In other, he didn't see him and he didn't talk to him. And, in what we're seeing more and more, it's true, but it's because I believe, and the documents we're finding bear this out, because he was having